Skol Vikings! That's right, we go on and we win another game and make it to 4-0. This is my game day gear. This is how I wear, minus the jersey, of course. Can't put it on if it's not game day. Takes away the good luck. I'm not going to do the whole show that way. It's really hot in the mask. We will return the hat to its proper spot, though. And thank you, and welcome to the Buck Stops here, episode 2, week 2. We've got a lot to do tonight. We actually have a bit of a format. I want to thank, I guess I can call him a co-producer, Jason Capello, for helping me with getting an outline for the show. Playing it by ear. It's going to be little by little here till we get things up to par where we need them. So just bear with us. I appreciate anybody who watches. Like I said, I do this for fun. I enjoy it. And of course, when I put things out there, I can see like, hey, see, I said that. It's all about being right. No, I mean, look, we'll talk a little bit about last Thursday night football. We'll talk a little about Thursday night football tonight going into the game. Now, obviously, I'm not watching the game. I start my cast at 8 o'clock on Wednesdays. So, you know, tomorrow night we're going to see an Arizona Cardinals at the San Francisco 49ers, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through our show here tonight. We're going to do a Skol Spotlight, as we're going to start calling it now, and that'll be a Vikings weekly update. We'll talk about previous game, some good things that happened, some bad things that happened. We'll talk a little bit about the upcoming game they're going to have. I believe we play 1 o'clock in Minnesota, and well, it's noon my time, Central Time, and it'll be against the Houston Texans. Another good game. We're looking forward to it. Hopefully we can make it to 5-0, but you never count your chickens before they hatch. You got to take it one game at a time. We're going to talk a little bit about Thursday's football game. We're going to switch gears some. We're going to talk a little WWE, go over how my WWE format's going to work. For those of you who don't follow wrestling too much, we'll get a little bit into it and tell you my predictions on some storylines that are going on right now and what I think the big things are going to happen down the road. I'm going to jump into a little bit of Major League Baseball. The playoffs are upon us. Congratulations to the Toronto Blue Jays as they beat Baltimore last night to move on to the actual playoffs and the American League Division Series. We're going to go through my predictions. I haven't been in the baseball thing in about a year and a half since I left the ABL. I think if I got too deep into baseball, I would have been itching to get back into the ABL. But that's kind of done and over with because I did a session of commish chat, and I'll be joining the league again next year. So we will have ABL talk down the road. They're in the playoffs now. I don't know a lot of what's going on with the players on the teams. I know the team's playing, but I won't touch too much on that until we get closer to our winter meetings and I officially pick the team that I am bringing into the ABL. I already know what team's coming in for the Orlando Sharks, and we'll discuss that more, like I said, as we get closer to the winter meetings in November. And after baseball talk, give you a brief rundown that we'll be talking some NBA basketball as we are in preseason now. I'm a Memphis Grizzlies fan. My wife is probably a bigger Grizzlies fan than I am, but we love the Memphis Grizzlies. I moved here as a Laker fan, and going to games, watching a hometown team, my blood turned from the purple and yellow basketball to the blue and black of the Memphis Grizzlies. So still purple and gold all the way here with the Minnesota Vikings. That'll never change. But it's great having a hometown team, being able to watch them play, and knowing the players and their strengths and weaknesses. And we'll finally, eventually here in a couple weeks, we'll also get into hockey. We'll talk a little bit about the NHL. I've been really out of the loop since I moved down south. It's not as right in front of you, adamant. I can get games on ESPN. I can do research online. So I'll do the best I can to try and keep people updated on the NHL and how I think that'll go. So to get things started, let's go. Skol Spotlight. Vikings update. We ended up beating the Giants 24-10 on Monday night. Excellent game. Started out, kind of slow and sloppy like normal. The Vikings offense wasn't doing too much. It's almost like they're trying to feel out the defense and see what they can do, what's going to work and what's not going to work. Stephon Diggs had an okay game. Cordero Patterson actually got into the offense a little bit. But I'd like to touch on what's been winning us our games. Besides Sam Bradford being so efficient, he's 3 games now, knock on wood, no interceptions yet. And he's very accurate. Like, he throws a deep ball and threads a needle like no quarterback. I mean, it's just amazing that he hasn't been successful up until now. And let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, strictly because it is only 4 weeks into the season, and plenty of time for him to get hurt, him to start making mistakes. So I am on the Bradford bandwagon. Like I said last week, I was real big on getting Bradford. I thought he fit our offense really well. I've always liked him coming out of college, so I really thought this would be a good choice, and so far it's working out good for us. But our defense, I don't know if John Gruden nicknamed it this or if it's been there and it just popped up. I need to do a little more research on it. But hopefully in a couple weeks you'll see me wearing a Purple Rain t-shirt. Vikings defense has been dubbed Purple Rain because they rain down on the quarterback. So thank you, John Gruden, for enlightening me on that. He had a really cool t-shirt he was wearing on Monday Night Football, and I'm going to get me one of those. Look, our defense is based on hurrying the quarterback, stuffing the run, making them make mistakes on offense. Turnovers, we had 1 on special teams. We had 1 interception by Xavier Rhodes, who will be my Viking spotlight tonight, so we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But we didn't have any sacks on Eli Manning. So if you're watching the game and you're not an adamant hardcore Viking fan or an adamant hardcore Giants fan, it just looked like, well, okay, that defense is okay. They held them to 10 points, and they didn't really get much going. But let's look at why there wasn't a lot going on that offense. Screen passes were working really well. The run game was, it was okay. They had a few good runs, then they'd get stuffed a few times, and that's a Vikings defense for run. But the big thing was Eli Manning didn't take more than 2 to 3 seconds every pass play to release the ball. You saw he threw the ball at people's feet several times just to get rid of it. He didn't get sacked once in a game. He got knocked down a couple times. But the offensive game plan for the Giants was to make sure that Eli didn't hold on to the ball. Why? Because he's going to get hit, he's going to get sacked, and he's probably going to fumble because that's what that defense does. Now Hunter was in the backfield a couple times, but again, Everson Griffin, they never got that sack on Eli Manning. But if you look at the numbers, Eli did not have a very efficient game. He was no touchdown passes. It was not typical Eli Manning. And of course, Odell Beckham Jr. was shut down by Xavier Rhodes. And if you know anything about the Vikings, you know when we drafted Rhodes, who's 6'1", I think he's 220, but the height, I like a tall cornerback who's fast, who can jump, and Rhodes has hands. Now, it hasn't shown in his career, but Rhodes is he's a good cornerback. He's great against your number 1 receiver, and he doesn't make a lot of penalties. He has great coverage. He has great recovery speed, and he gets to the ball. The overthrow by Eli Manning in the second quarter, when Rhodes picked it off, that was Eli overthrowing, trying to get rid of the ball. Looked like Odell went the wrong way on the route, but Rhodes just saw the ball and got after it. So it was a beneficial mistake for us because the Vikings ended up with the ball. But if you saw Beckham, I think he had 3 catches for... I've got my notes right here, and I apologize again. This is still a work in progress. But, Odell Beckham Jr. had 3 catches, and I don't think he had but maybe 30, 40 yards on those catches. He just couldn't get in a rhythm, and every time that he thought he was open, Rhodes was on top of him. So it wasn't just the defensive line. The Vikings defense goes every tier deep. You've got a solid line. You've got 3 or 4 guys that are interchangeable, can step up, play different positions. Donnell Hunter is the backup on our left end behind Greg Robinson. Sorry, Brian. Greg Robinson was the coach of the Rams many years ago. And, of course, Donnell Hunter plays on that left side as well. Robinson comes in and out. He can also move down to tackle if you need him to. You have Linville Joseph. Now, Sharif Floyd is hurt, so he wasn't in the game. But Steven stepped up. I mean, we had a lot of players that were able to do what they needed to do. Our offensive line broken down a little bit. We lost our right tackle, and Cyril stepped in again, and he played great at right tackle, where he played left guard last week because our lineman got hurt. So we have some depth and solid players. When you look at the run game, Jerick McKinnon, he had 85 yards. Really, it was amazing. Oh, here's my notes on Beckham. He had 3 catches for 23 yards on 9 targets, and he was pick was thrown to him when it was picked off. So, you know, that's not an Odell Beckham Jr. day. Sorry, back to McKinnon though. He had 85 yards, and I mean, you'd think no Adrian Peterson, no run game for the Vikings. We're just going to go back, play normal defense. Now Sam Bradford's got to actually try and get the ball to his receivers, and some running backs got to step up. Well, they did enough to win the game 24-10. That's all you need to do is score more than your opponent, and you're going to win. And the Vikings seem to be able to do that every game. Xavier Rhodes, 4th year out of Florida State University. He was our first round pick. He was number 25 in that draft. And I believe that's the same draft we picked up Sharif Floyd. I think we took Floyd earlier in the first round, and then we picked up Xavier Rhodes at 25th pick. He didn't start his rookie season, but he did play some. He's been the starting corner on the outside there for the last 3 years. Really came into his own last year. He was able to play well against Megatron in Detroit, Calvin Johnson. And he likes the number 1 receiver. He's good on them. He stays on them well. They don't usually have very good games against him, and don't always have to have interceptions. Now, when he was at Florida State, he was there for 3 years. He had 112 tackles. He had 8 picks in those 3 years. I mean, that's not huge, but it's 8 picks in 3 years. That's a decent, but he shut down receivers that played against him. He didn't give up a lot of touchdowns, didn't give up a lot of plays. Unfortunately, he never won a national title in Florida. He left a couple years later, I think was from Florida State, went on to win that national title, so he had already been drafted in the NFL. So that's our Vikings game. Basically, efficient offense, monster defense. NFL.com's got them ranked as number 2 behind Denver as far as their power rankings go. I'd like to see us climb up to number 1. You know, they're just power rankings. They have a formula they use. I haven't looked into depth into it. When I looked at my rankings and tried to figure out where they were in the top 5, I had Denver Broncos is number 1. I mean, they just seem to be having it all. The Patriots would have been number 2, but they got stomped in New England. But you got to take into account that they had a third-string quarterback who was slightly injured, still playing in that game against a Rex Ryan defense. So I wouldn't drop the Patriots down too far past 2 or 3. The Vikings were in that alternate spot, 2 or 3. And I actually, right now, have the Philadelphia Eagles in the top 5. They are number 4, and we get them in a couple of weeks after our bye. That would be nice if we were both undefeated just to see how that goes. That's where we got Sam Bradford from. So Carson Wentz became the starter there where Bradford was going to start. And I know that the Eagles fans are probably like, well, Carson Wentz, he's 3-0 right now. Hopefully he's going to be 4-0 after this week. And, you know, that defense, they're built a lot like Minnesota. That defense is really good. How good are they? We're just going to have to wait and find out. You know, they haven't faltered yet. And they just came out of nowhere. Now, Minnesota's defense started doing this towards the end of last year. And then Carson Wentz has been mistake-free so far in his rookie season. That's unheard of. I saw a stat somewhere where Dak Prescott has 110 passing attempts with no interceptions. He's the only QB that's got that many attempts with 0 interceptions. 2 other QBs don't have interceptions, and that is Sam Bradford and Carson Wentz. Something to look forward to in a few weeks, Viking fans. We can see them Eagles and them Vikings. We're in Philadelphia. It'll be a great game. A little bit more on the Vikings. I know. It's what I know best, so I apologize if I'm boring any of you people out there. But, hey, Purple Pride, man, you got to love it. Up next is going to be the Houston Texans at Minnesota. Now, you know, the Texans, if you want to look at straight numbers, they're giving up about 162 passing yards a game. That's tops, I believe, in the NFL. And they're only giving up 125 rushing yards. Now, we're not a team you're going to fear rushing. We're going to run the ball when we need to. We're going to do some screen passes to Cordero. I really think that the defense is where we're at. So Houston's defense isn't too bad. Now, there is a problem with their defense is they lost J.J. Watt for the year. Jadeveon Clowney should be able to step up and fill some of that role, but you can't replace a guy like J.J. Watt. So it's going to be interesting to see how we come out and attack that side of the defense. Houston's got a -3 takeaway, so they've given up 3 more turnovers than they've gotten. Minnesota leads the league with 10 takeaways. We've had 1 fumble we lost. It was in the Green Bay game, I believe. They fumbled. We got the ball, picked it up. We fumbled. They got it right back. So it was all in one play. So we really have 11 takeaways and 1 giveaway. So we're a +10. The Vikings are averaging 12.5 games given up. So 12.5 points a game given up. The only team better than that is the Philadelphia Eagles with 9. And that's average per game. That's not because, they've played 1 less game for the bye week. Minnesota's averaging 22 points a game, which is a lot more than I thought they would average. Houston's averaging 18.3 points a game. Now, they are only Houston's given up 18.3 a game, and they're averaging 17.3 on offense. So if you look at all these little numbers coming out of here, you could predict a score. I'm going to give you one here by the end of this little rundown. Houston's offense, they passed for about 222 yards. Minnesota's 226. Houston's got us on the running game by about 60 yards, 112 to 64. It's really 58 yards. But here's the thing. We hadn't had any running game until last week. With Adrian Peterson in, there were 9 men in the box and 2 safeties back, and Peterson had nowhere to go. And that's how you stop him. Make the quarterback beat you. You can't do that now because you don't need 9 men in the box for Peterson, or he's not there. And McKinnon and Asiata are not going to scare you. They should. McKinnon, he's got breakaway speed, and Matt Asiata will run right through you. But they're not an Adrian Peterson could hit a home run every time they have the ball. So you don't need 9 men in the box. But Bradford is still showing he can get the ball where he needs to get it. Him and the receivers are clicking. They started clicking early. There are only 3 games that they've played together, and they're just looking stronger every week. The Texans, they've got a young quarterback who wanted the money. He went to Houston. He's got an incredible receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. They've got an okay running game. But again, Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes, Captain Munderline, these guys, Terrence Newman. You got the experience in Terrence Newman and Captain Munderline, and the speed and just all-out talent with the 2 outside corners in Waynes and Rhodes. I don't see Hopkins having a huge game. Fantasy guys, I don't usually do this, but I would not take a receiver playing the Vikings defense. I would not take a quarterback playing the Vikings defense. Osweiler's not putting up great numbers, but DeAndre Hopkins is. But I would not take Hopkins this week if you have him on your team. I benched him on my team. I just don't trust going against that Viking defense if I'm building my team and trying to play and win. But looking at this matchup, it really looks like it's going to be a good game. I think the noise is going to be a factor. The Vikings are just right now so hyped up, and I'm not even looking forward to the bye week, where usually in the past it's like, oh, thank God there's a bye week here. We get time to rest. We get time to get healthy, figure out what we got to do to win. And this year, I'm kind of like the Eagles, like it's early and we're winning. And how are we going to come out, when we go to play the Eagles in 2 weeks? We got to get through this week first. My guess is Vikings are going to win this game because they are at home, and that defense is going to make Osweiler make some mistakes. We're going to get 2 turnovers. We'll have at least 2 sacks, and I think the Vikings are going to win this game. Blair Walsh will miss a field goal, so let's just say we're going to win it. Well, we'll win it 24-14. I'll give 2 touchdowns for the Houston Texans. So 24-14, I'm going to call that for the Vikings, and let's see how we do. Now, let's move on to last Thursday. We had the Dolphins and Bengals. I said it was going to come down to the running game. I said, they both have a good receiver. I thought that maybe Tannehill wasn't quite as good as his counterpart. So I was looking at it, and I didn't think A.J. Green would be the big difference. I was close on the score. The final score was 22-7. The Bengals did win the game. It came down to a little more Bengals defense and a whole lot of A.J. Green. Andy Dalton, looks like he had 177 yards passing. It's a one-man show, though. A.J. Green just stole the show. He caught just about everything thrown his way. Jeremy Hill had 21 carries for 71 yards, and Ajayi had 6 carries for 33 yards. So you kind of look at the averages, and there's a 5 yards per carry for the Dolphins running back, and, of course, Jeremy Hill. You're looking at, about 3.5 yards per carry. So, Ajayi had the better game as far as carries, but when you get behind, you got to throw the ball. But A.J. Green, he had the touchdown, and he apparently is just a man on fire. He wants to win, and I think he knows he's got to be the big one. They lost Mohamed Sanu and one other receiver, and I apologize, his name's not in my head right now. It's kind of a disadvantage doing a show by yourself. You don't have somebody to throw a name in your ear while you're talking. But, they lost 2 of their receivers, and they were, number 2 and number 3 receivers. And so it's the A.J. Green show here in Cincinnati. It looks like the Dolphins, they're struggling. Tannehill, he's not bad. He's not great. I don't think you're going to draft something to replace him, but you need to get some more weapons around him. And Miami really needs a solid running game and a little bit better defense. They get their defense going a little better, they'll be able to run some more, and maybe Ajayi's the guy they need. So the Bengals, on the other hand, they should really be a better record than they are, and I don't think they need to worry. I think they're still a playoff team. That may be Pittsburgh's division, but I see the Bengals grabbing a wild card. We'll go into more predictions like that maybe week 7 or 8 as we get halfway through the season, and I'll give some ideas on who I think the strong playoff contenders are and the teams that just aren't going to be there in the end. All right, something I've watched for a long time, my whole life. People make fun of people who watch wrestling. WWE, I've watched it when it was WWF. I watched WCW back in the day. Really strange, I'm not much into TNA. I don't know if it's just, I don't even know. I'm not saying it's the storylines of the wrestling. I just like it when they get in the ring and wrestle. And it's storylined. The stories are made up, and these guys are probably going out and drinking beer afterwards. But watching the storylines, trying to guess, really, I guess is what I like to do, is what direction the writers are going with each story and how they're going to turn out. Are they going to have faces dominant this year? Are they going to have the heels dominant this year? And it's great watching the athletes stay in their kayfabe when something goes wrong and they still play out their character. A great example, Seth Rollins and Sting a couple years back had a big match, and Seth Rollins had this move where he'll pick somebody up off the top rope and he'll carry him and throw him into the turnbuckle. And Sting got seriously hurt. Now they finished the match, and I think they ended it sooner than they were gonna because they realized Sting was hurt. And Sting won't ever wrestle again. Finn Balor won the first Universal Championship on a pay-per-view going against Seth Rollins, and Seth Rollins did that move and did it into the and you watched his shoulder as I get into it. He did it to the barrier outside the ring, and when they showed it afterwards, you saw Finn Balor trying to put his shoulder back in. Now Balor was supposed to win that match. We didn't know that at the time, and he went on to win the match, but the next day they found out after they did the MRI that he was going to need surgery, so he had to relinquish the belt. So, of course, they had Seth Rollins come out and be the heel that he was at the time. And, you might have beat me, but now I'm going to get my shot back at my belt. And so the storyline goes. That's kayfabe. He's worried about the guy. He hurt him. I haven't seen him do the move since. So we'll see if that's something that, the writers and the WWE keeps out of there, because there's certain things they don't want to do to harm their wrestlers, just like the NFL is trying to protect their players and NBA protects their players and so on and so forth. It is a sport. It might be pre-written, but you never know how it's going to come out. And the fun of that is trying to guess and have a good time with it. And I know my boys like to sit down with me, and it's competitive, and we'll try and guess the matches on a pay-per-view. If you get the WWE Network, it's $10 a month. I'm not getting paid to advertise, but I thought I'd let people know. You get the pay-per-views for free every month. Like, it's included in your $10 a month. Now, I remember paying like $60 to watch a pay-per-view, and it would be something like, in your house, and it's like, that's not even a major pay-per-view. Every month, you get the pay-per-view. Now there's going to be 2 of them with SmackDown and Raw breaking down. It's $10 a month. You get to go back and watch old matches. You get to watch little shows that they put on there. It's a pretty good programming for $10 a month, especially if you're interested in wrestling. I would say check it out, give it a try. You don't even need cable, just the internet. But on to something else. Let's talk a little wrestling. We're going to switch gears, and we're going to talk about some things that, not a lot of new stuff to report. Again, my co-producer, Jason Capello, he said that we should talk about in between the big pay-per-views where both shows are going to be on it. And the next big pay-per-view is the Survivor Series. So I'm going to build up to that in a minute. We have a pretty good rivalry going on the Raw side. And it is Sasha Banks and Charlotte Flair, or Charlotte. Charlotte seems to be the new queen of the WWE, and everybody's trying to take her down. And Sasha did once, but Charlotte got her belt right back. It's a really good rivalry going on. They actually, I'm not really, I'm going to be honest, the Divas, they're making a more, it's more of a sexual, hey, check these women out than it is wrestling. But these girls can wrestle. You watch them, they're doing some moves that the guys are doing that they didn't allow Divas to do years ago. Charlotte does this backflip spin off of the top turnbuckle onto the floor on top of Sasha in this past Monday Night Raw. And it's amazing. Like, they don't get hurt, and it's phenomenal. So there are some really good wrestling women, and then there's just some that I kind of fast forward through. I don't have cable, so I watch all my Monday Night Raw and Tuesday Night SmackDown on Hulu the day after. I'm not caught up on SmackDown, so I'm not going to have too much information on that tonight. The Raw direction with Owens and Rollins, the real issue here, I think, for Rollins is Triple H. I think Rollins felt one-on-one he could beat Kevin Owens, and I have to say Kevin Owens plays a better heel than anybody. The guy just is perfect for that part. I could never see them turning him face, but I slowly saw Rollins turn into the babyface side, and they've done a complete turn with him, jumping in the cage and helping Roman Reigns, who they couldn't stand each other 3 weeks before. And it may not have so much been helping Roman Reigns, but I think it was more of a, hey, these two guys are in here and I hate them, I'm going to attack them. And he just happened to help Roman. But if you watched that Monday Night Raw a couple weeks ago, the one that was in Memphis that I should have gone to live, but we had other things going on. It was a steel cage match, and before that, earlier, Reigns was leaving the ring as Rollins was coming in and kind of gave him a head shake and a smile, and Rollins smiled back. So you know something's going on there. I'm going to give you my prediction on that. That is going to be huge. If you go to SmackDown, well, let's finish with the Owens-Rollins. I think Owens is going to retain his belt here coming up at the next pay-per-view. And I strictly think that because they've got another direction they want Rollins to go. And when Finn Balor comes back, I think they want a real hardcore heel in there for Balor to take it from. I think Owens is going to hold it till close to WrestleMania when I think Balor might be back. So as I learn more and get more research on Balor's injury and his surgery and how that went, I'll talk more about that. But right now, there was some breaking news. It looks like Goldberg may be signing with the WWE, and you may be seeing a Brock Lesnar-Goldberg WrestleMania match. That could be interesting. Now, Goldberg hasn't been in the ring in how long? The guy is still in massive shape, but how is his ring presence? I wouldn't want to step in the ring. I mean, Randy Orton tried to step in the ring with Brock Lesnar after being out of the ring for 9, 10, 11 months, and he got annihilated. I mean, he even got actually hurt, and they had to stop the match. So Brock's not a guy you want to just jump in the ring with. So I hope that if Goldberg signs, he comes get some ring rust off before he jumps into WrestleMania against Brock. And again, as that becomes more of, I'll talk more about it. I see the direction with Rollins going against Triple H and the Authority, which has been gone, but apparently it's not really gone. There's some other guys that have had problems with the authority in the WWE. As we talk about these other guys, Dean Ambrose is one of them. And it looks like he's going to be in a triple threat match with AJ and Cena. Now, I said AJ was going to win the belt coming in, and he did. And before the end of the year, and I thought it would be later in the year, like going into WrestleMania. But I'm pretty sure that Styles is going to hold that belt until WrestleMania. And what you're going to see then is you're going to see John Cena and AJ Styles for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. And at that point, this is my prediction. If that match happens, Cena will be a 16-time record-tying champion in the WWE. Why not? He's the guy. He's the face. He's the one that always comes back and does what he needs to do and puts on the show for the fans and puts in his time and does all the extras. Nobody else has done that. So give him the tie. Do you let him break it? I don't know. But let's at least get him the 16th title and see where that goes. So by the end of the year, probably WrestleMania, I'm saying beginning of next year, you will see Cena get his 16th World Championship. That leaves Dean Ambrose as the odd man out. And I think coming up here, something's going to happen on the SmackDown Live pay-per-view. And they got a triple threat match. And something's going to happen. Triple H is going to show up. He seems to be a loose cannon right now, and I don't think he's really directed to any show. His real job is, developing talent in NXT. But of course, it's Triple H, Stephanie's husband, really one of the bigger stars that's ever been in wrestling. He's going to do something. I think he's going to do something to mess with Dean somewhere coming up soon. I think you're going to see something happen at Survivor Series. That's right. Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, and Seth Rollins are going to reunite the Shield to go after Triple H and the Authority. That's just a guess for me. That's just what just a guess of where I think it's going to go. And that's my theory. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow up with that each week and see if there's any new direction, any new source with that. I think it's going to be fun to watch. I really think that it makes it more intriguing when you can look at something and say, hey, this is going to happen, and then follow it. Now, when you say something like that, you find little things that in your mind are like, hey, look at that smile, look at that nod, hey. So, but I like to make predictions. If I'm wrong, hey, drill me on it. That's okay. But I won't be. And last, Coop brought up a good point to me today via text, and I thought I'd throw this in here. Braun Strowman, big man, powerful man. Nobody seemed to be able to really get in his face one-on-one. He's been doing some matches on Monday Night Raw that you don't see when you watch it on Hulu. And they're against no names. They're trying to get him some ring experience. You can put him in the ring against some people and he can just overpower them. But he's going to have a big match coming up soon at a pay-per-view. And you got to wonder who they're going to put him against. Who can you put Braun Strowman against to show that Strowman's going to start to come out of his shell, do some wrestling moves, and actually beat somebody who's worthy of beating? I could put me in the ring. I mean, hey, I'll do it. But what's that going to prove? That Braun Strowman's 3 times my size and knows something about wrestling, and I just know that I probably couldn't do any of the moves and I'd be hurt in 5 minutes. Or you could pick somebody like Big Show, Mark Henry, Brock Lesnar. But I don't think they'd go Brock for the same reason I don't think Goldberg should get in the ring with Brock. Brock not only has power and speed, but he is a damn good wrestler. I mean, for real, the guy's got moves, he's got submissions. I don't think that would be the right move. And with the rumors of having Goldberg come back, I don't think you'll see the Brock Lesnar thing against Strowman, at least not yet. Let Strowman get some wins under his belt. Maybe bring him in like you did Rusev. Have him go on an undefeated streak, beating people, working his way up to the big dogs. But somebody who could really recover well from a loss, a big pay-per-view loss with Braun Strowman, would be Big Show. Big Show always comes back from a loss. He jumps from face to heel, and people like him either way, or they dislike him either way. And he's got a knockout punch, and he's a big man. And what better than to see Braun Strowman get in the ring, do a little wrestling with him, and outpower the Big Show to win his first big match. So I'm telling you now, I haven't read anything on this. I haven't seen anything on it yet. I haven't heard anything on it. I think Braun Strowman is going to be good to go against a babyface Big Show right now. Mark Henry would be the other guy. But Mark Henry's towards the end of his career, and he's had a couple ups. He's had a championship, but he's just really kind of been a mid-carder. And I don't think putting a mid-carder in with a guy like Strowman, who you're trying to build up big, is going to help him. Now, maybe put him on a Monday Night Raw match and have him just annihilate, the strongest man in the world would help. But at the big pay-per-view, you really got to have someone big, and I think Big Show would be good. You don't want to go Kane. You don't want to take away what he's been doing. Kane's still the fear of the WWE. You could do a Taker WrestleMania if Strowman gets some experience under his belt. But I would see Strowman losing that, and that's not what they want to do. They want to get some wins under this guy's belt and give him confidence and let him wrestle a little bit. All right. So that was my WWE skit. Hey, it's fun to watch. It's fun to talk about. If you have any comments, any questions, I have changed my email address up a little bit. I was going to make a new email address for the show, but what I figure I could do is, because I have a Twitter account attached to this email address. There you go. That's sports, everything I do. Kind of sad. I think sometimes it might bother my wife. I don't know. She never tells me, so it's okay. She would never get mad about it, but I just think sometimes the sports, I overdo it. That's why I'm doing this, to try and get it out of my system so she doesn't have to deal with it, But anyways, so I do have a Twitter account, and I do have an email I'm going to give you. If you want to email me, I would love to hear from you. You can email me at ablsharks@gmail.com. That's ablsharks@gmail.com. And that is my ABL baseball email. It's also attached to my Twitter account. And, it's really sad. I don't 100% know my Twitter handle, so I'm going to look it up for you right now and tell you that it is at BuckSharks. So it is BUCK with a capital B, Sharks with a capital S at the beginning, at BuckSharks. So that is my Twitter, and I guess it's sad that I don't know it, but I've never given it out. I've only used it for baseball, and I follow a few people here and there, and I follow some sports, and I get a little of my information off of there. But I'd love people to tweet me. Tell me I'm doing a good job. Tell me I'm doing a bad job. Tell me you hate me. Tell me you love me. I don't care. I just want to hear. I can make my show better, but I'm having fun doing it, and I just want to hear what people think. So let's talk a little bit about Major League Baseball. I preempted this by telling y'all I haven't been following baseball very well. And there's my Yankee Southern there, telling y'all. I don't use y'all that often, so you're going to hear some of my Yankee, and you're going to hear some of my Southern drawl. I guess I got a little bit of both going on since I've been in the South for 10 years now, almost 10 years. But I've been out of the loop for baseball. I'm a huge Dodgers fan. I'm really going to miss Vin Scully. I listened to him quite a bit this year, knowing it was his last year, and I'd never hear him again. And, of course, I'm not in L.A., so I don't get a lot of Dodger games on TV. So you listen to him on radio, on Sirius, whatever. And just an amazing guy. What I know is that we are down to, and we might be down to the final playoff spot here in the National League, too. San Francisco Giants and New York Mets are playing as I speak. I don't have a score update. I'm not looking at anything on my phone right now. I'm concentrating on this. So I would really like to say that I'm a bit out of the loop. I know the basics like a casual fan. I was a hardcore fan. They had to strike. I drifted off. The home run race came up, and I'm talking back in the 80s, so I'm dating myself. You had Socha and McGuire jacking home runs and on the juice, and nobody cared, and everybody was excited, and wow, all right, baseball is back. And then we start complaining about people being on juice. But you knew McGuire and Sosa were taking something. They said they were taking something, Andro something or another, and nobody cared. You know why? Because everybody was watching baseball. There's a story for another time, though. So then I got back into baseball, and I worked at this department store in the electronics department, and my department regional manager came to me and said, "Hey, I know you're a good baseball fan, and I'm in this baseball league, and we just had a team drop out, and we need a manager for it, and this is how it works. Would you like to play?" So in 1997, I took over Seattle Sea Serpents in the ABL. In 1998, I started the Orlando Raptors. We worked our way on to become the Binghamton Bulldogs, back to the Raptors, to the Oregon Raptors, to the Orlando Sharks. More on that as ABL season comes up. But when I retired 2 years ago from the ABL, I stepped back from baseball. So here we are, talking baseball. I'm going to do my best to try and get through here and give you some basic predictions from just an average fan. Now next year, I'll be able to tell you a lot more. And as next season comes up, I'll be a lot more on top of it. And as I go to pick my team, I'll let you all know. I'm just going to tell you this. No, I'm not. So, looking at the playoffs, we had Baltimore and Toronto. And I picked Toronto to win that game in my head. I didn't tell anybody that. I didn't put it on paper. I didn't put it, well, I wrote it on my paper here, but you obviously can't see that. So, this is what we had. I had Toronto going in, and they would be playing Texas. And, of course, Boston and Cleveland are playing. Cleveland's a pretty good team, but I got Boston winning that series in 5. They're 5-game series in the ALDS, and I see Boston winning that in 5. Boston has really good pitching. They've got some power. They got Big Papi on his final run, probably wanting to go out on top of the world. And it doesn't happen very often. Sorry, I get very dry mouth here. Yeah, see my nice Vikings cup. I mean, I kind of bleed purple, you know. Anyways, so, but I see Boston winning that in 5. They're going to struggle a little. Cleveland's got a good closer. If they can keep a game close, they might be able to shut it down. But I just think the overall pitching and power of Boston, they're going to pull that out in a 5-game series. Then you have the Dodgers and the Washington Nationals. It's a tough one for me. The Nationals are a pretty good team. They have good pitching. They have some good offense. But I'm a Dodger fan. Hardcore. True and true. I was a Dodger fan growing up. I've never faltered from that. Kind of like the Mets a little bit. You know, they're okay. But I got to take the Dodgers in 4. Plain and simple. Kershaw's going to find his playoff self, and bam. Excuse me one moment. Thank you for that pause. I will tell you, you didn't see the pause, but I had to get up for a moment, and I'm back. I will tell you that as I go through these picks, I reserve the right to change my outcomes depending on the series. Why? Because they're my rules, my house rules. It doesn't sound fair, but hey, I got to try and keep something on the program. So if and when the Dodgers get beat by Washington, I'm going to have to switch my pick and say, okay, well, Washington won, so now that's going to change how I pick going into the next series. Or is it? I'm going to tell you now without looking at the score. Okay, I'm going to cheat. Before I look at the score, I'm going to tell you I think the Giants are going to beat the Mets just because every other year the Giants seem to go on and win the World Series. I believe this is an even year, and I think they're supposed to go win it. So let's take a quick look and see where we stand with this game right now. Because picking the Giants, I need to know how they're standing. And top of the 6th, tied at 0. So you can't see that because it doesn't show very well on the TV because it's light on light. But it's 0-0, top of the 6th right now. Giants are going to pull this out. They're going to go on, and they're going to play the Cubbies. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter if it's the Giants. It doesn't matter if it's the Mets. Theo Epstein's got this Cubs team rolling. I just think with the management they got going on there, I believe Joe Madden is the manager of the Cubs. I think they're going to sweep their National League Division Series, whether it's the Giants, who I just picked, or the Mets, and they're going to win in 3. And I think the Texas Rangers are going to do the same thing. I think they're going to go ahead and they're going to take out Toronto in 3 games straight. I know Toronto is got a lot of power in that lineup, and they're fun to watch. I just think Texas is running this year. I think they're going to have a good series. Now, that would leave us the Dodgers against Cubs and Boston against Texas. Boston in 5. Hate to do it, and I'm stretching it to 7 games, but I think the Cubs are going to take the Dodgers in 7. Kershaw's going to get to pitch twice, but he struggles in the playoffs. And if he struggles even one of these games, the Cubs are just going to walk away with it. They've been the best team in baseball all year. They were picked to win it all coming in. Theo Epstein took a Boston team who had the biggest curse in baseball on him, the Bambino curse, and he got him a few championships. He goes to the Cubs, who have 90-some-odd years of not winning anything, and he's got him the best team in baseball. Guy's a genius. If the Cubs win and the curse is over, is Epstein the greatest GM ever? Yankee fans, you don't want to say it, but you know it's true. So in our World Series, you know, the Boston Red Sox, Big Papi, huge story, retiring, needs that last ring, wants that last ring, going to do whatever he can to get that last ring. And the Cubs, 90, 100 years of misery. Cubs are going to win it in 6. Epstein goes down in history as one of the greatest GMs ever. And, of course, the Cubs will still come back next year and be a team to reckon with. That's all I got on baseball for now. I'm going a little over my time. I'm going to finish this up. We got a Thursday night football game coming up. That's right. Tomorrow night, Thursday night football, Arizona at San Francisco in their new park down in Santa Clara, California. Why are they not the Santa Clara Niners? The New York Jets and New York Giants play in New Jersey, so I guess you can move your team wherever you want and keep the name. Here's the biggest factor. Carson Palmer's not playing. When I wrote my notes, I said, will Carson Palmer play? That could be huge. However, he does have 5 interceptions this year. You have the running back team of Johnson & Johnson. No relation. And they're averaging almost 100 yards a game together. But, you know, you got to look at the teams. They're both 1-3. Arizona and Carolina were both in the NFC Championship game last year. And they're both 1-3 this year. Carolina lost 1 game last year, 2 counting the Super Bowl. They've already lost 3. And Arizona, I think, was 13-3 or 12-4. So what does Arizona need to do to win this game? Well, John, they need to score more points than the Niners. Yeah, we know that. Sorry, had to throw that in there. That's one of my Maddenisms. Arizona is going to come out, and they're going to put points on the board. And I don't care if it's Drew Henson or Carson Palmer or me throwing the ball to Larry Fitzgerald. You've got Fitzgerald. You've got Malcolm Floyd. You've got John Brown. I mean, you got these guys that can go up and get the ball. And Brown's quick. He's good out of the slot. You get a little running game going, switch it up between the 2 Johnsons and let them, mess with that defense. Then here's the thing. The Niners, taking away that Rams 28-0 whooping they put on the Rams the first week of the season, which I don't know where that came from. Is that a fluke? I mean, the Niners are giving up an average of 27 points a game. And that's with a shutout. You take away the shutout, and I think it's like 36 points a game they're giving up. They're giving up 141 rushing yards and 250 passing yards a game. On the other side, they're only getting about 180 passing yards and 114 rushing yards. So, they're scoring 22 points, and again, that's with that 28-0 blowout. You take that away, they're down to about 18 points a game. Arizona's scoring 23 points a game. They get about 281 yards passing average. Now, that's with Carson Palmer. They're averaging about 100 yards rushing. They give up 110 yards, 203 passing yards, and they give up about 20 points. So you're looking at the Niners scoring about 20 points. But I see Arizona putting some points up on the board. I see a defensive pick 6 coming somewhere, somehow, some way. They're going to get a defensive touchdown. Probably going to be Patrick Peterson. You've got semi-experienced quarterback in San Francisco with a basket case on the bench, and I say that because Colin Kaepernick should be a starting quarterback. He got somewhere in his head last year, something just clicked wrong, and he went from being a perennial all-star to a basket case. And if Kaepernick can get his head back in football, he could be the starting quarterback of this team. That's not our issue. We don't have a Colin Kaepernick starting. So, if you're looking at this game, you're going to have to say the only way for the 49ers to win is to control the ball. If they can get Carlos Hyde 110, 120 yards rushing, let's say 20, 25 carries in the end zone at least once, possibly twice with those numbers, I would say the 49ers can win this game. But they have to establish the run, they have to control the line of scrimmage, and let their defense hopefully keep them in the game. If they can do that, they can pull off a win. I don't see that happening. I see Drew Henson, Larry Fitzgerald, and the team of Johnson & Johnson, and maybe a big play by John Brown. Arizona pulling this one off 31-17. Again, Carlos Hyde is the key factor in this game. If Hyde gets the ball a lot, gets over 115 yards, we'll stick with that number, and can get at least one touchdown, he's going to have enough ball control and clock management to let the Niners really do their thing and win this game. And if they do that, I'm looking at maybe a 17-14, a 20-17 game if the Niners win. But I just see something clicking with Arizona being 1-3. They were picked to go back to the NFC Championship game this year and possibly the Super Bowl by a lot of people. And they're 1-3. If they don't click it now, they ain't going nowhere. So that's our Thursday night review. Biggest factor, Carlos Hyde is the key to this game for both teams. Stop him from running, you're going to beat him. He gets the ball going, and they get ball control. I think the Niners have this one. But my call, Arizona 31, San Francisco 17. Next week is a bye week for the Minnesota Vikings. So we're going to preview some NBA. We're going to do the Eastern teams, I think, next week because I'm a big fan of the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm still a Laker fan. You've got Golden State. You've got an Oklahoma City team that nobody knows what you're getting. So I'm going to have to do some research to figure out what's going to happen in the West. I'll have my research done. I'll give you a rundown on the East, some of my predictions, how the playoffs might go or who might make them, and we'll have a little fun with it. So until next week, and we hopefully end up with a 5-0 going into the bye, I have to say just one thing. Skol Vikings, let's have some purple rain. Thank you.